Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is chicken fried steak. Today we're going to be cooking a recipe that you guys have been requesting for a long time. It's that home cooking classic, chicken fried steak. Now there's nothing fancy about chicken fried steak, but it is a solid meal to eat on a chilly day like this one today. And I'm going to walk you through the steps that I do very simply. Maybe you'll pick up a few tips and techniques along the way. For our chicken fried steaks, we're going to be pounding out some eye of round steaks. Now I really like bottom round as well, but this is what they had available at the store this week, so we're going to be using the eye of round. The idea though is that you want to use a bargain cut, something you don't have to spend too much money on, and something that's nice and lean. So as you can see, not a lot of fat running through the center. We've got just a little bit right there, and we're going to take the fat off the edges as well. Your chicken fried steak cooks pretty quick, so there's not a lot of time to render down any extra fat that's running through or sitting on the side of the steak. You could also use one of those cube steaks or minute steaks that are already tenderized. They come all smashed down and they look like they've got a ton of holes in them. Those are perfect for chicken fried steak as well, but they have very little texture to them. It's almost like eating ground beef that's been breaded, and that's fine if that's what you like. We're gonna go with something with a little bit more mouthfeel to it. So I know this doesn't look like a ton of meat, but once we get this pounded out and breaded, it's gonna be quite a big piece of meat. So we're gonna actually take these and cut them in half before we pound them down. All right, so I'm gonna start with some plastic on top so the meat doesn't go flying everywhere. And then we're gonna start with the flat side of the mallet. And this is where we're really trying to take this down to a nice thin layer. So there we go, we have a nice thin layer now, it's still holding together though. And once we get it to that point, we're gonna take the textured side of the mallet and just add a little extra texture to the surface for that flour to grab a hold of, and will really create a nice crispy crust on the outside with the breading. Now before we get into breading our chicken fried steak, we want to make sure that our oil is getting hot on the grill. And we are cooking our chicken fried steak on the grill today. Like I always tell you guys, frying outside is so much better than frying inside. You don't stink up your house. There's not grease everywhere. We're taking it outside. And we're doing it on the Yoder Smokers YS640S today, preheated to 425 degrees. Now I've got a direct setup right over the flame so that I can move my skillet over here and we're gonna cook over the flame, but I've also got an indirect cooking area to the right so that we can hold our steaks hot when they're done. So we're gonna move our 12-inch skillet over the fire, and we're gonna add about a cup of vegetable oil. We're doing a shallow fry today, so we want just enough to kind of cover the bottom and should come about halfway up the steaks. Let's jump into the dredging process. It's a 3-stage dredge. So we start with dry ingredients, we move to our wet ingredients, we move the steak back to the dry ingredients, and then off to the rack. So we're gonna go down with 2 cups now of self-rising flour. It's gonna have a little bit of leavening in it to add a little extra pop. And then we're gonna season that with our butts are smoking our beef rub. Tablespoon per cup of flour, so 2 tablespoons here and our 2 cups of flour. Give that a good mix. And that's all the seasoning we're gonna need on this thin piece of meat, so we're not gonna bother seasoning these steaks before they go into the dredge. Now moving on to our wets. We have 2 whole eggs. We're gonna add to that 1 cup of buttermilk and about 1 tablespoon of Killer Hogs hot sauce. This of course is optional, but great flavor. So we're gonna start off in the flour, and we wanna really press that flour into the steak to get it to stick. Shake off the excess, and now our liquids have something to grab onto. We're gonna switch to our wet hand, get that coated in our egg and buttermilk mixture, and back into the dries. Again, let that excess drip off. Switch back to the dry hand. Really press that in there once again. Make sure we got the other side good. And then shake off the excess. Just move this over to the rack and do the same thing with the other 3 steaks. Now we got these steaks breaded up. They're ready to go. I like to let them sit and just hydrate a little bit. They should start to moisten. That flour starts to suck up some of that moisture. I find I get the best result out of the fry if it sits just a little bit. So in the meantime, I'm gonna head over to the grill and check on the oil, see where our temperature's at. So it looks like we've popped up over 400 degrees now, and that's okay because as we throw 2 steaks in at a time, it's gonna drop drastically, and we'll get that about 350 to 375 we're aiming for. We gave these steaks a good 5-10 minutes to sit, and you can really see the hydration that's going on here, how it starts to look a little bit wet. Our oil's hot, it's time to roll. So we're gonna go 2 at a time, start on 1/2. Always lay stuff down away from you when you're putting it in hot oil so that that oil doesn't splash back at you. We've actually got a touch more oil than what we need, which is fine. It's still gonna cook just fine. But we really just need to make sure it comes up to the lip on the edges. It doesn't have to come over the way it has. More importantly, what you should be seeing is the bubbling around the edges. That should be happening very quickly. Don't worry about a specific temperature. You just want to make sure you've got plenty of activity going on around the edges. All right, it's been about 3 minutes now. We've got a really nice golden brown on the bottom. So I'm gonna come in here with my spatula, and I've got a gloved hand here, so knit gloves with cottons over the top that are gonna allow me to handle this hot food. You still don't wanna dunk your hand in the fry oil, but you can turn it nice and gently with your hands. You don't risk losing any of your breading. But look at that beautiful color on the top. That's exactly what we're going for. You can also see some of those meat juices starting to come out on the portion that hasn't been fried yet. Beautiful. Now the temperature of the oil's dipped a bit. We're down at about 325, so I'm just gonna close up the grill and let it cook away so that the oil can come back up while it's still frying. We're gonna move those off shortly though, because that meat's gonna be done in no time, and we're just looking for that right color on the bottom. All right, this chicken fried steak is looking money on the bottom. Let's take a peek. Look at that. Beautiful brown color, nice and crispy. So we're gonna move these off to the side now. We'll come right back in to our fryer oil with our chicken fried steak round 2. Still got the bubbling going on. That means we still got enough temperature going for our shallow fry. And again, that shallow fry, that means that our food is in contact with the pan, but the oil level has come up around the sides of the food. If we're doing a deep fry, it'd be floating freely. If we were doing a pan fry, we'd have very little oil in there. All right, so once again, just a few minutes. We're ready to flip. Nice golden brown with a few more to finish up, and we'll get into making some gravy. We got the color on the top, the color on the bottom. These guys are ready to come off. And like I said, we're gonna be making some gravy, and we're gonna do that right here in this skillet that we've been cooking in, but we don't need all that extra fat in there, so we're gonna go ahead and pour that out. So we're gonna start with a tablespoon of unsalted butter. Get that melted down. We're gonna build our roux for our creamy gravy. So after that tablespoon of butter is melted, we're gonna add to that a tablespoon and a half of our flour, and you can go ahead and use that self-rising flour. It's not gonna hurt anything. Give it a whisk. When you've really got these proportions right, you should start to see something that looks a bit like wet sand. And we're gonna take that wet sand and cook the raw flour out of it just to a nice light blonde. We don't wanna go too dark. Not try to add any bitterness or extra depth of flavor to our cream gravy. So it should start to smell a little bit nutty, as it does now, just about. It only takes about 30 to 60 seconds typically depending on your heat level. And I'm gonna throw in some flavoring agents. So we've got a little bit of fresh thyme. We'll just leave it right there on the stem. Crush down a clove of garlic. We can pick these out later. We just want them to add a little bit of flavor now. And we're gonna go ahead and start to add our liquid. We're gonna bump up the flavor on our creamy gravy by starting out with chicken stock. Add a little bit of chicken to our chicken fried steak. So this is where we're really adding some flavor now. Garlic, thyme, and chicken stock. But for that half cup of chicken stock that we've got, we're gonna do 1 full cup of half and half. And now what started looking like it might be a brown gravy is going to actually turn into a nice cream gravy. So adding a little bit at a time, making sure we don't clump up, whisk constantly. And then we'll let the roux do its work and start to thicken our gravy. While we're waiting on that, we can add a little bit of smoked salt and pepper. So I got a shake of the hickory smoked salt. And I like to go strong with the black pepper on a cream gravy. So this is gonna come up to a simmer. We're leaving the door open for now because we're getting the direct heat we need on the bottom of the gravy, and we don't want our chicken fried steak to overcook. We're just trying to hold it warm off to the side. So as it comes up to a simmer, it'll thicken up. You wait until it hits that desired consistency, whatever you really like. If you like it a little bit thinner, add a little bit more half and half. If you like it a bit thicker, add a little bit more roux in the beginning. Totally up to you, but I'm already watching the bubbles form as it comes up to a simmer. You guys come get in here and check this out. So check that out, those big bubbles forming. We're starting to get that thicker consistency, and now it's just a waiting game. This is thickened to perfection now. Let's go ahead and slide it off the grill. Head back over to the table. All right, let's get it plated up. Cream gravy on top. I'm not sure which one of these is the star of the show, if I'm being honest with you. I love me some country gravy. And depending on what time of day it is, a couple of over medium eggs right on top, or maybe a pile of mashed potatoes and some greens. And I can't resist just a little dash of hot sauce on top. Let's get in here. Cuts like a dream, great crunch. We haven't lost any of our breading thanks to packing it on the outside. That breading, outstanding. Cream gravy. Would you even know what a chicken fried steak tastes like without it? I don't know. But the seasoning is on point. The heat level's just right. Not too hot, not too cold. Finishing it off to the side, keeping it warm on the grill. Great little hack there. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, chicken fried steak might be the king of home-style cooking. Thank you to all of you that have requested this recipe over the last couple of years. I'm stoked to finally be eating it. I'm gonna finish this one off. You guys go make yours. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video, or just click that link in the video description. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All Things Barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.